From sea to shining sea, America's favorite uncle, Bumpkin Bob.
Hey y'all, it's Bumpkin Bob coming to you from the Bumpkin Media Studios here in Siloam Springs, Arkansas. Hey, I want to give a shout out for our little intro music. I hope y'all really like that. I love that. Make sure you go over and check out the Woo Pig Suey song by Brian Kinder. Hey, let's start out with some announcements this morning for the last week in September. Today being September 30th. The old Bumpkin had a birthday this week, along with my sister and two of my cousins on the Griggs side. Now, that just goes to show you the best Griggses were born in September. So everybody knows. Also, some sad news to pass along. I didn't mean to chuckle because it is sad, but this is probably more for our male viewers than everybody else. Hugh Hefner passed away this week. Moment of silence for just a second. Okay. I'm sure every male person watching this video knows who Hugh Hefner is. I don't think I need any explanation on that. Gonna get started this morning. Thought I'd tell a few stories on myself and give you a little bit of insight into my childhood, my raising, and also a job site tale about the same thing, and talk a little bit about mudding, which everybody that lives in the state of Arkansas, probably the South, North, East, and West, knows what I'm talking about. We've all done it, be it in your car, truck, or minivan. I'm sure there's some of you out there that have taken mom's minivan mudding and then got in trouble for it. Don't tell me you hadn't. But I thought I'd tell a few stories this morning about that kind of stuff. And the first one that comes to mind really didn't involve a whole lot of mud, but it just, I was trying to think about the mentality of certain people. And as I was growing up, and I'm talking about in that like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old age range there, a lot of my hunting and fishing and running around that I did was with my brother-in-laws. And they had that mentality of being able to go anywhere that they wanted to go in two-wheel drive trucks. Now, I honestly do not remember either one of them owning a four-wheel drive during that time period. I just, if they did, I don't remember it. And they always had two-wheel drive trucks, and they put mud tires on the back. And I did the same thing. I'm not saying nothing about it. Had a few two-wheel drives with mud tires on the back. But their main saying was, "I've been places a four-wheel drive can't go." Well, now, on up in my age, I'm 53 years old now. I've come to realize, and I actually realized this a long, long time ago, that was bullshit. But I also realized the old saying that four-wheel drive just means being able to get stuck in least accessible places. But usually when they would say that was right before they were fixing to try to go through some god-awful mud hole. And usually they would say, "Had this truck places four-wheel drive can't go." They take off through this whatever they're trying to get through, creek, river, lake, sometimes. And usually that statement was usually followed up with a statement to me, because I was always the youngest. Yeah, we're going to need you to walk back out to the highway or to the road or to some house we saw 15 miles ago and see if you can find somebody to come pull us out. That's usually what ended up happening. So on this particular instance that I was going to tell y'all about, because it was kind of funny, we were in a 2-wheel drive Chevrolet truck that actually 2 different family members had owned. And we had a 4th person with us that day, and it was my cousin. And of course, he was up same age, close to the same age as my brother-in-law. So I was still the youngest one in the truck. And I was actually riding in the bed of the truck. We were over in an area, kind of the eastern part of Saline County, Spring Lake Road and U.S. Highway 167, which is Sheridan Highway, runs down to Sheridan. And I've got some friends, Dale and Angie and Lisa, all live out in that area. As a matter of fact, I think Lisa might actually live on Spring Lake. But at this time, and we're talking about 37, 38 years ago, that area was not developed. Now they went in there, cut all the trees down, cut them back, and they built a housing addition around that lake. Well, that lake is full of cypress trees, or it used to be. I hadn't been by there in 10 years, so I don't know. But anyway, we were going to go over there and go fishing, and we decided to try to get into the back side of the lake. So we went around the Sheridan Highway, hit a logging road, trying to get back in there to the back side of this lake. Well, we've been through a couple pretty long mud holes that we got through, without much trouble. But we ended up coming up on this pretty deep wash, sorry. And we got out and looked at it. Well, the brother-in-law of mine that was driving decided that he thought he could get across it. So the rest of us, I wasn't getting back in the truck, but he got over there and he hit that thing pretty hard trying to jump that truck across it, I guess. I don't honestly know what he thought he was trying to do. But when all was said and done, and I know what you're thinking, a lot more probably got said than done, but when all was said and done, the front bumper was sitting on one side of that wash, and the back bumper was sitting on the other, and there wasn't a tire one touching nothing. And to be honest with you, even if it had been a 4-wheel drive, it wouldn't have gone nowhere, because literally there was nothing touching. So, as usual, after assessing the whole situation, the plan to get the truck out was looking at me and going, there's a house up there on the Sheridan Highway with some equipment sitting by. Why don't you walk back out there and see if they'll come pull us out? So it was about probably half a mile, 3/4 of a mile back out to the highway. So I walked back out there, went across Sheridan Highway, and old boy there had, a little place there and had a couple of dump trucks and a backhoe and a little dozer and some other equipment. So I went up and knocked on the door, and his wife came to the door. Well, again, I was probably about 13, 14 years old. She said that her husband wasn't home, but her son was. She went and got her son, and he was about 16 or 17. Told him what was going on. He's like, oh yeah, I'll come pull y'all out. We'll take the dump truck. And I know y'all are probably thinking what I'm thinking. You're going to take a dump truck down a logging road in the middle of the woods. It's like, yep. And that's exactly what we did. We took the smaller two, had a little single axle dump truck, got over there and drove it down there. Well, that last mud hole you had to go through before you got down to that wash was probably about 30, 40 foot long. Well, he stuck the dump truck in the middle of that mud hole. And I thought, oh boy, we're in for it now, because Dad's going to come home and his dump truck's stuck down there in the middle of the woods. And all hell's probably going to break loose. Well, what ended up happening was he went back up to his house and got the backhoe and brought it back down there and pulled the dump truck out with the backhoe, and then went down there and pulled that truck out of that wash. Now, honest to God, I don't know how we kept from tearing the bumpers off that pickup the way it was hanging out there in the middle of the air like it was. And I wish back then we'd have had cell phones so we could have took some pictures of that. because it would have been classic. Actually, it would have been classic. They had a video of him trying to bounce that truck across that wash. Now, today, with the rock crawlers and shit people got with like 42-inch tires, you might have actually been able to bounce across that wash. But back in 1979 or 80, you didn't have a snowball's chance in hell. So we got out of that without none of us getting shot. And I'm not too sure, and I wish I could remember. Of course, my one brother-in-law's passed away. To ask one of them did anybody give that kid any money for coming down there and pulling us out? I mean, he used diesel fuel on that backhoe and the dump truck. It's like that would have been the right thing to have done, wouldn't it? Give him a little bit of money. Now, I have two other ones I wanted to talk about, and one of them is going to be on me, which I'm going to tell last. But the second one's on my boss at Arkansas Electric when I worked there. We had these big, huge, like circus tents that they loaned the other co-ops on occasion when they'd have like their annual meetings and stuff. And we had took one of them tents and unfolded it and cleaned it up because the vice president there needed to borrow it for his church. Well, he had a long wheelbase, or what we always called a long wheelbase, be the 8-foot bed, regular cab truck, probably like a 75 GMC, 4-wheel drive V8 with a 4-speed granny load. Well, we got that tent cleaned up, rolled that whole thing up, and put it in the bed of that truck. And literally, it took up the whole bed. It was cab high in the back. I mean, now this was a tent. Well, it had two center posts, or they weren't centered, but two posts that stood up in the middle to hold the center of that tent up. And, man, if I had to guess, they were 14, 16 foot long. Well, that's my boss, and I'm not going to mention his name, Carl, but I asked him, I said, where you want me to put these posts? Well, he had me lay them on the axles underneath that truck. Because we're talking about it had solid axles. You know how the old 4-wheel drives didn't have the independent front suspensions like they do now. So I laid it across them axles and ratchet strapped it to the axles underneath the truck. So I did what he told me, and he come down there in the park where the thing was done to check on me. And he's like, let's pull it up there in the driveway. So he got in the driver's seat. It's like, okay, pull it up there in the parking lot. Well, and for the people that know or have worked at Arkansas Electric, you'll know where I'm talking about. Down behind Engineering South, they had a spot down there that some of the big wigs plowed up every year and made gardens. And down there in that garden area, boy, it'd been raining and it was all muddy and shit down there. Well, my boss decided that he was going to drive that truck down through there and play in it a little bit. So here we go down through this old garden area. It's just soft and muddy and nasty, and he's slinging mud everywhere. Then we got back up. He pulled back up there at the park to see how muddy he got the truck. Of course, the whole side of this pickup's covered in mud. Underneath where them poles are strapped in the axles, I don't know how we kept from getting stuck, them poles strapped underneath either. It's just covered in mud. So guess what I got to do next? Yeah, I got to wash the truck. Take the poles back out from underneath, wash underneath the truck. And he was like, Carl, you're just creating work for me. And the last mud and tell I'm going to tell today, before we move on, I ended up living out in East End community, actually out part of Maple Creek Farms. And had a ditch that ran there in front of the house, and it literally was wide enough, because I did this all the time. I would pull my truck down in that ditch and drop the tailgate, and my truck would go completely down in the ditch and set level. I mean, this ditch was wide in the bottom. And pull my truck down in there and load my mowers or four-wheelers that way and unload them. And then I didn't have to have ramps. I just drive it right up in my truck. Imagine that. So I literally had probably had my truck down in this ditch hundreds of times. Hundreds. I shit you not. Hundreds. So had to go run up to East End one day. It's like on a Sunday afternoon. And the X was parked behind me. Well, I had a 1990 model 4-wheel drive Chevrolet. And actually, it was in the like late winter, early spring time of the year because the deer season was over. So I'd taken my buckshot mudders off the truck and just put my street tires on. Well, again, I drove through this ditch a million times. Well, I just started off through that ditch and I guess it was just the right time of year and the bottom just fell out and that truck set out on its frame. Well, now, y'all, I've drove Fords, I've drove Dodges, but probably the majority of my life I've drove Chevrolets. And I guess if I had to be one thing or another, I'm a Chevy man. That's just how it is. But I called everybody I knew to try to get somebody to come pull me out of that ditch. Because literally I was sitting on the frame. And I tried digging it out. I tried everything I could think of. I couldn't get it out. And it finally came down, and this hurt more than anything I've ever done in my life. Nobody was home. Everybody's out of pocket. Couldn't find nobody. It's like everybody I knew had skipped the state. So I had one buddy left, Keith. Keith had a long bed 2-wheel drive Ford pickup that, if I had to guess, probably had a 306 cylinder in it with an automatic. I mean, and that 306 was a good 6 if it had a standard transmission behind it. If it had an automatic, it was probably a dog. But he was the only one. And Keith lived over between Vimy Ridge and Alexander. For any of y'all that know where I'm talking about, down there around Bryant area, y'all probably know exactly where I'm talking about. So he drove all the way over to my house and got up there on the pavement and pulled me out. It was the worst day of my life, having that Ford pull my Chevrolet out of my own front yard. And if y'all remember the story I told about the Bronco, same Keith. Yeah. So, anyway, old Keith's a good guy. I hope he's doing good. If I had my bet, he's still driving Fords because some people you just can't teach any better, you know? So, anyway, we're going to move on a little bit. Last Saturday, I told y'all, we're fixing to watch the ball game just like today. Here at 11 o'clock, Arkansas is going to be playing New Mexico State. And hopefully we're going to win one. Last week, y'all, the Texas A&M game, I really believe this in my heart. I think most people that are fans were kind of had that game bookmarked for this year as a measuring stick. Now, boy, it's early in the year. We've only played 3 games, and that's the one thing the sports shows are really harping on, that they're only 3 games into the season. The season isn't over yet. We still got 9 games to go. Don't give up the ship. Hang in there. And I agree with that to an extent, but I still think everybody was putting a lot of emphasis on that A&M game because A&M was down this year. And we thought, boy, if we've lost to them the last 4 years. Brett's never beat them. We thought, man, if there's a time we could beat them, it's now. and it just didn't happen. Again, we got beat there in overtime. We did take them to overtime. That's the third time we've played them in overtime, Texas A&M, and just hadn't been able to pull it out. I saw somewhere somebody was saying that, if caught that last pass, we could have won the game. It's like, no, the last pass would have tied it up. Wouldn't have won it, but at least it would have tied it up. And we just couldn't pull it out. I've had a lot of discussions this week with a lot of people. One highlight that did come was we got to see Cole Kelly, all 6'7", 265 pounds of him. And the one thing I took from that was that kid's got a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, he was pumped every time he came off the field. It was good to see. It's like, I wish we could see more of that from the bench. Now, granted, poor Austin Allen from last year and this year has been so beat up. I mean, because of our front offensive line, he spends most of his time on his back, that he's got no enthusiasm left. Now, I really think the coaches need to work on that and try to get his attitude up there a little bit and try to help prop him up a little bit attitude-wise. Needs a little bit of an attitude adjustment. And I'm not saying I blame him for anything. I mean, as bad as his offensive line's been and not being able to protect him, he gets hit an awful lot. And I know that's got to play on his mental abilities. Heard a lot this week of this whole situation being compared to Danny Ford. I mean, when he coached here, Danny Ford was 26-30-1 over his 5 seasons. And the reason he got canned the last two, or when he got fired, was his last 2 seasons he went 4-7. That being said, you have to look at the fact that the next 2 years under Houston Nutt, or 3 years, Houston Nutt did really, really good with the players Danny Ford had recruited. So I'm not too sure, kind of using this as a judgment, people, that they didn't let Danny Ford go a little too quick. I mean, he did really good his first 2 seasons with people Jack Crow had brought in. But, it kind of started falling off. But his recruiting was getting to the point he had his people here, which are the people Houston Nutt came in and made his good showing with those first couple of seasons. So everybody's pointing at the fact that Brett's 26-28 to date. That's to date. We got 9 games left. He literally could bring that up to 500 a 500 winning percentage this year. If we look at his 4 seasons so far, he went 3-9 that first season. Won no Southeastern Conference games at all. He was 0-8 in the conference. And then the next 3, he's went 7-6, 8-5, and 7-6, which is not a bad record. But here again, that 7-8 win thing falls out there again, and I'm so tired of hearing the sports shows up here go, well, that's all Arkansas is ever going to be in the Southeast Conference is a 7-8 win season team. And it's like, if that's the truth, if that's all we're going to be, we're never going to win a national championship, never going to win an SEC championship, why are we fans? It's like, why are we fans? I want to talk a little bit about something else that got brought to my attention, and the more I think about it, the more I but the more I realize the truth behind this statement. When you start getting down on these kids, they are student athletes, and it's don't get down on them. You get down on the coaches, that's fine. Brett Bielema was paid $4.1 million to coach that team. And yeah, we expect more out of him than 6 or 7, 8 wins, which we completely have the right to do. I mean, we're paying his salary. But we're still, don't get down on the kids. These are student athletes. These are young men that are anywhere from 18 to 22. And, you have to blame their situation that they're in on the coaches. That being said, I also think, the coaches at Arkansas really emphasize going to class and being students first, which I truly love. I think that's correct. I mean, those kids are getting a free education. They should take advantage of it and get their degree. I really am a proponent of staying the full 4 years. I mean, to me, I think it's a contract, and it's like, we're going to give you 4 years of education for 4 years of football, and I think you should have to honor that contract. I hate the fact that after their sophomore year, they can declare for the draft. I mean, it's hard on that coaching staff to say, this is who I'm going to have the next 4 or 5 years. Me personally, I think they ought to do away with having to do a freshman season in college before you can go in the NFL. I think these guys that don't want an education, don't want to be there, they're just doing it to go to the NFL, they ought to let them go. Just let them go. We should be playing college football with college student athletes that want to be there the full 4 years and get their degree. And it's like, and another thing, I think these kids that come in that are smart enough to go, they're going summer semesters too, and they get their bachelor's in 2.5, 3 years, or they're taking a real heavy class load and doing that. I think as long as they're playing football, you ought to keep paying their tuition if they want to get a master's degree. It's like, as long as their eligibility's there, pay their tuition. Let them keep staying. I would much rather see a football team that's full of kids that are smart enough to get their bachelor's degree than just lugs that play football. I think those kids that are really there to get their degree, they're smart, they think on their feet, and I think that's what you need for a good winning athletic program. If that's one way to say it, I hope it is. I hope I said that right. Had another discussion this morning, as a matter of fact, about the other thing that's come out is people talking about not being able to keep offensive and defensive coordinators and position coaches. I really think at some point they need to look at that, and try to get the salary for those positions up to where, like, our offensive and defensive coordinators are not going to leave except for another Power 5 head coaching job. I mean, that salary needs to be at a point to where they're not going to make a lateral move and or take a coaching job at a lower school for lower pay. I mean, it needs to be up there to where the only thing better is a Power 5 head coaching job. And that should be the mentality for your position coaches. That should be high enough that they're, if I'm the linebackers coach, I'm not going to leave to be the linebackers coach or a defensive or offensive coordinator at UCA or at UTEP or Tulsa. The only way I'm going to leave a positions coach is to go be an offensive or defensive coordinator in a Power 5 conference. That's just the way I think. I mean, I agree with that. I think those salaries should be up there. Again, my opinion, I think Brett's paid too much. I think that price for the head coach needs to come down, and to where he's only making like 20 or 25% more than his coordinators. I mean, it's got to be some continuity there. And again, something else everybody's griping about with Arkansas. It's like we have no continuity with these kids. These kids don't have continuity because they're not keeping the same coaches every year. It's like every year they're having to learn a new defensive scheme or a new offensive scheme, and that's tough to do. So that's my little bash on the Razorbacks. If that's a bash, I don't think it is. Again, they play at 11 o'clock today, Arkansas, New Mexico State. Let's make sure everybody roots for them. I think we're going to end up 2-2 after this, which puts us back at 50%. Leaves us 8 games to play, so we're still got a shot at finishing out and Brett being an even 500 for his whole tenure here. Just got to get some SEC games to go our way. I did like the fact that we saw some new wrinkles in the offense this week at Texas A&M, and that had to have been being worked on in fall camp, because I don't think they could have installed that many wrinkles even with the bye week in 2 weeks. I think that was probably already being worked on. I hope to see more of that, just really let that offense out. Hope Dan Enos just really goes balls out. I hope that Brett kind of lets him go on that and keeps up with it. I want to take some time before we get into anything else to make sure that y'all are checking us out on Facebook. Like our page there. Follow us on Twitter. Go to the Bumpkin Bob Show. It's at bumpkinbob.com. Tell your friends, go over and join us, and so you can watch us every Saturday. We've got a lot of stories we want to tell. Again, go leave us at the Bumpkin Bob Army there on the Facebook page. I want to hear your job site tales. I know some funny shit happens where you work, and I want to hear it. Now, the next thing I want to get into is I want to throw a shout out to Neil McCoy. I don't know how many of y'all follow him on Facebook, but as of today, on September 30th, Neil McCoy is up to number 632 of doing the Pledge of Allegiance. It's great. He's a very conservative-minded person, and he does that pledge every day, gives you updates on his tours. So make sure you get over there and follow Neil on Facebook. And something else, y'all, on Facebook, if you're following somebody that you think the rest of us ought to follow, somebody that has a good positive message every day or every week, let us know. We want to follow those people too. This week has been a very strange week. I will say that. There's been a lot going on, especially last weekend. It really got crazy over there in the NFL. And I don't know. I'll be, okay, let me do it this way. Sunday, I was furious. I'll just be honest with you. I didn't watch any of the games, but I tried to watch some of the pregame stuff, and that pissed me off as much as everything else. People mad at Donald Trump and, commentaries and people like that saying that he should apologize for, what he said about which one of the owners would say that some bitch is fired, get him off the field. And it's like, I got no problem with that. I don't know why they do. Most of these people probably say worse than that in their private lives. I know I do. I cuss like a fucking sailor. But I'm not going to be upset about somebody saying son of a bitch. And, as far as Donald Trump, it being Donald Trump, and you saying it's not very presidential, well, I think he's pretty much broke the mold on what is and what isn't presidential. He says what he means, and he means what he says. I don't know any other way to say it, people. But again, I got very upset at some of the shit. I got upset again this week because the Pittsburgh Steelers, they came out and decided, well, we're just not going to come out at all. We're going to stay in the locker room during the national anthem, as if that's an answer. And they've got a person on their team that he's a veteran. He's an Army Ranger. And he come out and stood at the outside for the national anthem, with his hand over his heart. Well, then the next day, their quarterback comes out and apologizes for not coming out and standing for the national anthem. He apologizes for coming out and standing up for the national anthem. And their coach is all pissed because he's saying that, well, he didn't show unity. And that being said, that bullshit Sunday night with the Dallas Cowboys, all kneeling and holding arms and then standing up, that was a cop-out. That was a sellout. That's all that was. Whether Jerry Jones said it or didn't about, and I shouldn't have said his name probably get sued for slander. But whether he said or didn't say that he was going to fire anybody that knelt down during the national anthem. But it was all over the internet that he said it. Well, instead, I think he covered his butt by saying, okay, let's all kneel down before and then stand up for it. And then I don't have to fire anybody at the end of the night. To me, it was a sellout, a cop-out, whatever you want to call it. I understand everybody talking about it's their First Amendment rights. Number one, I don't understand what they're protesting against. I don't understand what locking arms, what they're united against. And it's crazy. It's just, to me, when you do that, when you kneel down during the national anthem, you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting the national anthem, and you're disrespecting the people that fought and died for your right to be able to do that. And so, is there no other way that you could protest your conceived oppression or your self-conceived oppression, however you want to say that? Is there not another way you could protest it other than kneeling down during the national anthem? It just boggles my mind. And I just don't understand it. And then y'all start throwing out these numbers of why. I don't even know how to say all this. It's crazy. It's gotten out of hand, basically. And now I'll be honest with you. I am one of the people that I'm not watching the NFL. I'm going to watch college football all day today. As soon as we get off here, I'm going to watch the Razorbacks. I'm probably going to watch some games this afternoon and this evening. I will not watch the NFL. I'm done with them. I'm done with a bunch of rich-ass crybabies talking about their oppressions. They're not oppressed, whatever. I know I'll probably say all this wrong, but I'm done with it. And it's like, yeah, some of y'all or most of y'all, whatever, probably came from poor backgrounds. But once you got out through college ball and you started drawing them $1 million checks, you forgot about all that. You're living in your glass houses chunking rocks, and you need to quit. I'm tired of hearing this shit. I get up and go to work every morning and barely make my bills every month. I don't want to hear your bullshit. And it's like an, another thing. Oh my God. You people that are in positions of authority, like police officers, you got to get in your mindset that everybody and their fucking brother has a camera. And everything you do is going to be videotaped. And it's like, make sure that when you do something and it gets videotaped and they go out and edit everything out so that it looks like one way, that you've got a videotape to back up what actually happened. Please God, wear your body cams and quit turning them off. If you turn your body cam off, then whatever you're fixing to do is wrong, and you need to turn your body cam back on because somebody else is going to film it. And if you don't know that, then you're crazy as hell. It's like, and again, I've been looking up statistics all week, and I decided I just pushed them away. I'm like, I can't look at any more of that shit about black on black crime and white on black crime. It all runs together after a while. So everybody needs, number one, football players, professional football players. If you're going to talk about that shit, make sure you got your facts straight. You know what I'm saying? And quit bringing up things that happened and bitching because the cop got off and got found not guilty. He got tried by 12 people. They found him not guilty. He's not guilty. So go on, move on, and get over it. I'm so sick of that shit. It's like I literally got to one night this week that I couldn't look at any more statistics if I'd have wanted to. Just wasn't happening. Just wasn't happening. Just this whole episode has been just really tiring and wearing on me because I've worried about it all week. What to say, not say. I've tried to beat around the bush today. One thing I did want to say today, and just so everybody knows where I'm coming from. I was born and raised in Arkansas. I will probably, by the grace of God, die in Arkansas. I am conservative to the core. I can't be any other way. It's just the way I am. It's the way I was. I'm not saying it's the way I was raised. It's just who I am and what I am. I believe in God's guns and family. Not necessarily in that order. I should have said God, family, and guns. I believe I have a right and a duty to protect myself and my family from evil. And that is up to and including terrorists, both domestic and foreign. That's just the person I am. I don't know if anybody understands that, if anybody feels that way too. The things in life that are most important to me are my kids, my future grandchild, and all this shit that's going on, people, all of it, is moving us towards someplace I really don't think we want to be. I posted last Sunday when all this was going on that because, a lot of people are coming out and saying, what Donald Trump says dividing our country, what this person says dividing our country. Well, I'm telling you right now, kneeling for the national anthem in front of the American flag is doing more to divide our country than everybody else and everything else put together. It's like, and if y'all can't see that and you just keep doing it, it's just going to keep adding to it. It's just the way it is. I don't know. This whole week has been just up and down for me as far as worrying and thinking about this stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet, a lot of stuff on Facebook about it. And again, you football players that are kneeling down during the national anthem are doing more to divide this country than the politicians do all year long. I mean, it's crazy. And if you're not taking that responsibility, then I got nothing else for you, basically. Nothing. Now, I've said a lot today and probably not said nothing, to be truthful. Talked about some mudding. That is something I truly love. And that's something else. Y'all get out every now and then and run some dirt roads around here in Arkansas. Let's get out and get back to doing the dirt road. When my middle son was learning to drive, that was something we did every Sunday. We just get out, pile in the truck, pile in the old Dodge pickup, and run dirt roads all afternoon on Sunday, and had a blast. So get out and do some of that. Love the dirt road. I'm trying to change the subject, if you know what I mean. I still got all this shit going through my brain about the Razorbacks and the NFL, and I'm trying to get off of it. Try to talk about something else. Do a little talk about dirt roading or something. Not only dirt roading, but get out and shoot your guns too. That's always a good conservative thing to do. Oh, Lord. I'm just digging myself in a deeper hole today is what I think I'm doing. Again, I want everybody that's watching this show today, I want y'all to get out there at 11 o'clock and watch the Razorbacks. Let's root them on, y'all. And my son-in-law hit me below the belt the other day. He really did. And I'm going to tell this little story. We were in Grubbs over in Fayetteville for my birthday. It was on my birthday. We were all having a big talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks and all of this and that. And him and my daughter and my oldest son have tried to get me to go to the stadium here in Fayetteville for a football game. And I just haven't, because it's nothing against the stadium. It's nothing against Fayetteville. I just don't like big crowds of people. And I try to avoid them with the plague. I just don't like it. I don't know any other way to explain it. Haven't actually been to a football game since probably 93, 94, something like that. And the only ones I ever went to was in War Memorial Stadium. And we've talked about that before. Talked about the fact that I love War Memorial Stadium and hope there's always football in War Memorial Stadium. And the only time I've seen the Razorbacks play is in War Memorial Stadium. Well, the other night, my son-in-law was like, they were talking to me again about maybe getting tickets this year and going to see a football game. And finally he goes, the conversation had turned to who's going to be the final game in War Memorial Stadium. Now, him and my son kind of think it's either going to be, because it has to be an SEC game. So they're thinking it's going to be Vanderbilt or LSU. And the hope is that it's LSU because, we used to play LSU every year for the boot in Little Rock. It was the last game of the year until the SEC did their little change up about trying to make East-West rivalry and all that stuff. And anyway, so they were talking about that. My son-in-law looked at me and he goes, I know we've tried to get you to go to a game, but he goes, next year is going to be the last game in War Memorial Stadium. What about going to that game with us? And I'm like, Dylan, that's hit below the belt. That's not fair. because he knows that kind of tugs at my heart a little bit. So the old Bumpkin, I'm not promising nothing. This is not a promise to my son-in-law, to my son, or my daughter, or to anybody else in the family, or any fans we might have. I might be talked into going to the War Memorial game next year, 2018. We'll just have to wait and see who it's going to be, see how it kind of plays out. We'll just kind of play it bare, see what happens. It's a possibility. It's not a probability. It's a possibility. Might be kind of cool to see it. Let's see, 70, 80, 90, 2010, 48 years since my first game in War Memorial Stadium. That might be kind of cool. We'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. By the time that's played next year, I'll be 54. I don't know if this old bones can take that or not. Maybe they can park me close enough to War Memorial and get a handicap parking spot. Anyway, that's just a pipe dream or something. That's all that is. We'll just have to wait and see. Poor old Dylan, he's been trying to get me to go to a game for a while. I just hadn't done it. He does love his Razorbacks, I'll tell you that. And I tease Dylan because, number one, he's a big Razorback fan. Number two, he was in the Air Force. And if my dad had lived long enough to know that he now climbs poles for a living, Dylan really would have been his number one. And I hate to say that because he's got a whole passel of grandsons and some other son or grandson-in-laws. I don't know how you'd even say that, but I think with those three things, Razorback fan, the Air Force, and climbing poles, Dylan would have went right to the top spot. I think he already was there. Ooh, shit hell. For y'all that know Bobby Dean, y'all know I'm probably right. Man, there was something else I thought of a minute ago I was going to mention about the Razorbacks, and it completely slipped my mind. I can't remember what it was now. But I'm going to recap here for a little bit. Again, condolences go out to all male viewers because Hugh Hefner passed away this week. Again, a shout out to Terry, Danny, and Cindy. Belated happy birthday to y'all. I don't want to make nobody in the family mad, but the best Griggses are born in September. You just can't beat it. I just don't know any other way to say it. If you get a chance, go over there and follow Neil McCoy. Again, he's on number 632 of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Say it with him every morning. I think that's awesome. I wonder if there's a Guinness Book of World Record for that. That might be. Wonder if anybody from Neil's camps contacted them about it. Again, I'm not going to tell y'all what to do or say this is what we should do. This is what I do. I personally am not watching any NFL stuff. I won't be buying any merchandise. Man, this week on Facebook, I've seen a number of videos of people burning their jackets and banners and season tickets. And it's like, I don't think the NFL realized how big this was going to end up being. They should have nipped it in the bud last year when Kaepernick did it and got it over with. And there again, I am in complete agreement with people about the commissioner. He's all over the board about stuff. It's like he wouldn't let the Dallas Cowboys wear a sticker on their helmet for the 5 fallen police officers in Dallas, but yet he comes up with and supports this because it's free speech. And it's like, you need to get your shit together. And there again, it's being consistent. It's like talking about the coaching staff at the Razorbacks, being consistent and keeping consistent coaches. The commissioner of the NFL needs to be consistent too, because you're all over the fucking board. Pick a stance and stay with it, and quit being flip-floppy. It's wrong, and it just shouldn't be done. Anyway, I hope y'all have enjoyed today's show. Stay with us. Everything's going to get better. We're going to keep having more and more content on the website. We're going to get posted on the website, because we've been promising this, our cons list for porta potties. My cousin Jim put some pros out there on one of our videos on comments for porta potties, and there are no such things, Jim. I love you, but no such things. So make sure you go to our website and look for that. Again, we're going to be watching the game today. Go Hogs. And I hope everything turns out. Again, be mad at Brett, not the student athletes. This is the Bumpkin, and we're out for the day.